Mad Dog and Stephen A are howling at each other over the Cowboys-Eagles game. Which team needs it more? Which team needs it more is what we are debating on the big football game of the weekend. Cooper Rush against Jalen Hurts.
I would argue it's a house money game for both of these teams.
No, I would say the Eagles, much more important for them to win.
Why?
Because you don't want to lose your home game with your division rival with their backup quarterback in. You don't want to do it. You don't.
That's
because
fair.
Then you have to play them in Dallas with Dak back, you know?
Are Eagles fans not like completely thrilled by being 5-0? I know that, there was a significant Eagles hype train ahead of the season, but this has been a start beyond their wildest dreams.
I did not expect anyone to take my topic throwing seriously.
Well, it's their topic.
I did not expect anyone to take their topic seriously.
Dominique is there, so you know it's going to be a party
I
today.
heard Dominique did a great Michael Irvin impersonation the other day.
Really?
On First Take. And when you say that it's going to be a party, Chris Whittingham was, I don't know. Chris Whittingham doesn't have an accurate self-evaluation because he was surprised that colleagues and coworkers were surprised that he was fun at a party, that Chris Whittingham was fun at a party.
We took Jello shots together, Woody and I. Really? Even though he showed up in a suit and tie, which I thought was weird.
Admittedly,
sounds like a blast.
Those are the lamest of the shots to take. We all agree on that.
I also had an Incredible Hulk, which I'm
you
reliably
did have an
informed
Incredible
is Hypnotic and Hennessy.
Yeah.
That's more. There you go. Now you're talking.
Yeah. Which I just anytime I did something fun. This was at Mike's 37th birthday party last Friday. And anytime I did something that was remotely approaching fun, they're like, "Whoa, Witty, where's this coming from?" And I was just sort of like, "Oh, really? Am I this lame to you at work? Where me doing anything approaching fun?"
Witty. See, it's not that you're this lame at work. I don't think that's what it is. It's that you're very buttoned up, right?
Oh, okay.
Dan calls it repressed. I feel like that has a sexual nature to it. I don't like that. Yeah. But the point is, you sometimes feel a little bit buttoned up. And what I like to see is you unbuttoning, even though you had your tie up and the button all the way up. I'd like to see it. Yes, whip it out. I'd like to see the buttons undone, taking Jello shots, slamming beers.
Are you still
flip cup?
Are you still pooping green?
No, that thankfully has subsided. There is a subject of major controversy.
It's terrifying.
At this party. So everyone who attended this party is pooping green. Now, we don't know if it's because of the aforementioned Hypnotic or whether there was strong dye in the cake that was there, and that cake has colored all of our poos.
I didn't have cake for the matter, so
How's your
I
poop?
am not pooping green.
Okay,
put it on
all
the
right.
poll, please. At LeBatard Show, has the party gone well if everyone is pooping green? At LeBatard Show.
Can I just not to take this to a different place, but what was like the consistency? Was like it like liquidy? Yeah, like what?
All right, let's move on.
What? Because one could be dye and one could be
not
like
to take
thickness.
it to a different place. I'm
No,
always
it's
scared
It's a
when
fair
you start
question,
when you start that.
It had like a chili consistency.
It was normal. It was my normal BMs, but it was just colored green.
I don't put it on the poll, please. At LeBatard
normally
Show.
have
Are you
lobster.
repressed if you refer to bowel movements as BMs? And I have not called Witty repressed.
Dan, that is not true. You said Witty's repressed like 37 times.
I have.
Somebody make a tape.
Yeah,
Witty-
I have 32, but I'll
Witty,
trust
you
Tony.
would know. Have you heard me? Have I publicly or privately called you repressed? I don't remember if I have.
We are raising money today for Hurricane Ian relief, courtesy of Operation Barbecue, and on our T-shirt shop. There is a T-shirt, which I'm not a fan of me as a genderless doll, because apparently I am asexual in your mind in some respects.
I didn't say repressed. I just said genitalia less, like just like a
no,
doll.
that's sort of
better.
good.
No, that's better. That's
What are
better.
you saying?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's better.
So, maybe don't buy that T-shirt, but buy the others.
No,
at
buy that
LeBatardAF.
T-shirt because
don't.
all
I
proceeds
meant
are
to talk to
going.
Angel about that one.
All proceeds of T-shirt sales today at the LeBatardAF.shop are going toward relief. We are raising money for Operation Barbecue. I should say, before we get into the meat of the live show, I should explain to people. I know that Governor DeSantis of Florida has now taken to calling it the regime media and saying that the regime media was hoping that storm would go to Tampa. the media, I don't think anybody was hoping that storm had gone to Tampa. But if it had gone to Tampa, it wouldn't be as easily ignored as what has happened to cities that people care about less or know about less, because they're mostly vacation cities and resort cities for Florida that don't have some sort of national or international appeal. And so in the devastation of this, and I'm telling you that I don't believe the numbers are right. There's been number fudging throughout Florida. I do not trust, when it comes to death and numbers, accurate reporting on this, and the information gets out slow, and the people on the west coast of Florida who are still living need help. And we're asking you to help them because the help is profound. I want you to think of one day you live someplace, and then, because you don't have the means to move, or you can't leave, you either have flood,
or you knew too late, Dan.
Or you knew too late. Flood water goes as high as the first story, the roof of the first story on two-story buildings. Imagine that pouring through your town. It's going to displace and dismantle and ravage and wreck in ways that might not even be able to be rebuilt, because this storm was a monster, and the damage it did is still being calculated. And so we're asking you, the easiest way to help, if you want to buy a t-shirt, that's one way to do it, or you could donate directly, worldofsuey.com/Ian-relief. If you want to make yourself helpful in an easy way, they make good food, and they're helping first responders and others, just feeding people with some basic necessities that they need that are hard to come by as bridges go out and flooding just ravages a place.
It's doing more than just giving them pulled pork sandwiches, which is kind of what it sounds like just based on the name of the charity.
I mean,
so don't think that we're like, oh, you lost your house? Here's some
a
brisket.
sandwich.
You know what I
It
mean?
would make me
it's
feel
not-
better.
Fix it. Yeah.
If I did
Exactly.
lose my house, though, a pulled pork sandwich would be a nice start.
Right.
I mean,
Comfort
food
yeah.
is important, I would say, in these moments. Also for the workers as well, that are doing a ton of work in that area. Fort Myers, the cleanup there has actually gone relatively well, but there's still massive parts of southwestern Florida that are dealing with devastation, and the major highway there, I-75, that runs through that area, it's difficult to traverse at the moment. Also, in terms of donations, we're trying to make life easy for you. If you're watching us live on YouTube right now, there's actually a QR code on the bottom right corner of your screen. Chris Cody is trying to point towards it, where if you just scan the QR code, which is right there we go. We got there. You can just scan it there from your screen, and it takes you right to the window. We've already had one person who donated $1,000. We thank you very much for that. So again, worldofsuey.com.
Who can beat it?
/Ian-relief.
Who can beat that? Someone can beat $1,000.
Let's say his name. It's Anthony Stephen gave the $1,000.
Yes.
So thank you to him.
Meadowlark Media will match up to $20,000. And again, the proceeds from the store today are going to help. The relief is needed, and we thank you every time that we've ever asked you for help on this stuff. Always the loyalty of this audience and the help of this audience is continually overwhelming, flabbergasting, and not taken for granted. I want to ask you, outside of football, as the baseball playoffs are in full swing, and I'm surprised by something that made an appearance yesterday or over the weekend, Stugotz. We have not yet talked about how you feel about your 100-win Mets being eliminated by the Padres, how you feel about Max Scherzer. We have not gotten the Stugotz tears
Right.
on the Mets season yet. I have something that I want to ask you about San Diego's horse,
Okay.
Joe Musgrove.
Yep. His ears were glowing.
That's not what I want to ask you. I don't think that's your primary observation from your team being
His
dismantled.
spin rate was
after,
ridiculous.
well, I want to
It was
talk about
absurd,
this.
man.
I want to. Well, he seems to be clearly cheating, and the reason I say that is Brian Kenny, who's not irresponsible, has accused him of that. Brandon McCarthy accused him of that and then deleted it, and the spin rate numbers would suggest that he was throwing a lot harder than he usually throws, and he was pretty unhittable, even though he's unhittable a lot. And it seems to me, after talking to a few baseball people, everyone's cheating again. And the Astros are sitting there, and they had the moment from yesterday. The Destiny, Team of Destiny Mariners had the moment from yesterday where they get a walk-off, and it's just wonderful. Like, it really is so much fun. to watch the way that game ended, unless you hate the Astros and they're cheating, and unless everyone's cheating as they celebrate Aaron Judge again because they don't want to celebrate the cheater Barry Bonds, and everyone's cheating again.
Can we stop with the hatred for the Astros?
Nah.
I mean, the team's got Correa. Is Correa still there? Springer is gone.
No, Correa's not there.
Correa's gone. Springer's gone. The manager's gone. The GM is gone. They're a good baseball team. I mean, that's it. They're a well-run baseball organization.
I hope that I shouldn't say.
They were rewarded for tanking because they lost 120 games for many seasons, or were able to replenish their farm system because baseball is okay with tanking.
They did it well.
Yes.
I mean,
I hope for the sake of our friend Mattress Mac that they do well, because Mattress Mac, I believe, made a $10 million bet on the Astros to win the World Series that would net him $75 million, which Mattress Mac doesn't need $75 million, but he's kind of gone on a cold streak as of late with some of these ridiculous bets that he's making, so he may need the $75 million. I don't know. He's a mattress magnate. I don't know how many mattresses you can be selling where you're regularly making $10 million bets, but I'm a little worried for our friend Mattress Mac here, you know?
I have been for a while. The way that he wagers seems a bit reckless. But I wanted to ask you about the thing that I just mentioned, Stugotz, combined with Yordan Alvarez. I believe is one of those guys. To me, he's like Freddie Freeman. When he is batting, I always expect him to get a hit. Mm-hmm. He swings the bat so ferociously. His numbers are very good, and all of his numbers have been very good. He hits home runs in the postseason, and that walk-off off a lefty. Yeah. Lefty on lefty is as hard as you can hit a baseball to end a baseball game. And that moment when these games matter so much against a team of destiny was special. But are we being arbitrary with how it is that we point and catch the cheaters when in that sport we yelled about steroids for years because we felt comfortable with that as an observation, but now, and then it goes to garbage cans and the science of technology, and there are plenty of people in baseball who believe that the Mets were eliminated from the playoffs, and Buck Showalter might be one of them, Stugotz, because he checked them.
He was checking balls too. He had the ball boy throw him balls. He was feeling up the balls in the dugout to see if anything felt kind of, off there. Here's my question, because I was kind of wondering this. They checked him, obviously, in the middle of the game when the Padres were already beating the Mets.
His ear was glistening.
It was, and then he did like this weird, that shoulder motion where it's like, oh, my ear is sweating. Let me wipe my ear. He did that thing, you know what I mean? So here's my question to you. If you're the umpire and you're Major League Baseball and you find that Musgrove is cheating in the middle of an elimination game where his team is up, and you eject him from the game, what do you do? Like, what do you do if it's proven that he was cheating and a team has now been eliminated from the playoffs in a game where someone was ejected for cheating? How do you handle that? Like, it's almost easier to be like, I don't feel anything on your ear. Everything's all good. Let's keep things moving. Everyone will forget about this in 2 days. Because, how does the game explain that someone was caught cheating and that team advanced and a team was sent home and their season is over when a cheater was kicked out of a game?
What would you do in that spot? That's interesting. You're not going to stop the game, replay it. You're not going to give the series to the Mets. It's almost easier just to say, nothing to see here. Let's keep it moving.
I don't know what Major League Baseball would even do. Like, what do? You replay the game? Do you just say, too bad, so sad, sorry, we ejected him, he's fined, he's out for the next round? Because, a season could have possibly ended on someone whose ear was glowing and had very different spin rate than he did the rest of the season.
Whitty, do you have that sound of Mad Dog Russo going after Buck Showalter for checking Musgrove for cheating? Again, I'm going to say Brian Kenny is not irresponsible. He really knows baseball. He made this accusation flatly. He's just saying flatly Musgrove was cheating.
But these are one of those unwritten rules, Dan, where it's just something a manager is not supposed to do. I don't blame Buck for doing it, but managers aren't supposed to do it. It's like in lacrosse, okay? You are frowned upon if you do a stick check, meaning you're checking to see if someone else's stick is legal because they've lit you up for 7 goals. It's frowned upon. You're not supposed to do it. And I think people within baseball would say, hey, Buck, what are you doing?
I don't think this is an unwritten rule. I think if a guy is cheating and
Buck got some criticism for doing it in game. He did.
Including from Mad Dog Russo.
Yeah.
And I love Buck. I hate to say this, but what the Bucks and what the 24-year-old kid with the data processing board who tells somebody in the front office, hey, go tell Buck that Joe Musgrove's spin rate is larger than it usually is, and he can go moan and groan. That was a horrific look for Showalter and the organization. To go out there to talk to Alfonso Marquez to dress down Musgrove in the 6th inning when you've gotten one hit and you've done nothing in a week and a half. I don't care what Buck said after the game. What I'm doing, what's good for the organization. That was bogus, and if you're going to do that, you better find something. That's as simple as that. If you're going to do there and dress down the pitcher on national television when you're losing 4-0, you better get it right. And he didn't. So he looks like a horse's rear end. There's no way around it, and I love Buck. But that was a very, very poor decision, and it made the Mets look it made them look small.
How do you just dismiss the fact that his spin rate is up?
That's
like,
right.
he's just like, yeah, what do you mean? I don't get some nerd telling Buck about spin. Yeah, that's an important fact.
No, but I think he's acknowledging that, but he's saying you can't check it and then be wrong, and you don't wait 6 innings. Do it in the 1st inning, the 2nd inning, the 3rd inning.
What are your
Not
thoughts?
6 down 4-0.
What are your thoughts on what Mad Dog said?
Well, I agree with what Mad Dog said.
What would your thoughts be if he had caught him actually cheating and they eject him from the game? Would you have agreed with him?
I would have said great job by Buck for doing it. But Dan,
So it's not. So it's all the.
no, but Chris is right. If you're going to go out there and you're going to undress him, as Russo said, then you need to be right. And they weren't right. And that's
I
a
was
bad
right,
look for the
Chris.
Mets. You're down 4-0.
You said his
choked
ear
the
was
division.
glowing, though. You said
it was glowing.
Okay,
I mean,
but you're checking him for why his ear is glowing, and it's like.
I never check it in the 1st.
Okay.
It was still glowing in the 1st.
okay, so
Stugotz,
check it
I'm
sooner.
picturing you coaching a lacrosse game. If
Yeah.
you're getting your ass kicked in the 3rd quarter and you see someone's got something going on with something, you're not going to say something because
No.
you didn't say it at the beginning of the game?
I think even the
we were never
opposite.
trailing in the 3rd. I mean, there's only halves, 2 halves. So,
But what's the
fine.
unwritten rule? Ask in the 1st inning, but not the 6th. Is that what you're saying? The unwritten rule
Dan.
is catch the guy cheating in the 1st inning, not the 6th.
here's the worst possible timing. Okay, when you have blown the division to the Braves because your aces Scherzer and DeGrom were dreadful against them in the regular season, and then you're down 4-0 in the 6th to the Padres. That's not the time to do it.
Well,
You
hold
do it
on.
1st inning, 2nd inning, 3rd. You do it before they're up by 4 runs with 3 innings to go.
Well, that's the thing, is that you and Mad Dog are both Mets fans, so you're both really mad at the
Mad
Mets
Dog's a
at this point.
Giants fan.
Oh, that's true. Well, he's
Yeah.
in New York. Anyways,
Well, this is not the conversation that I actually want to have with you guys.
I think if I was Buck Showalter and my team is losing 4-0 in like the 5th or 6th inning, even if I don't see anything, I'm like, check the pitcher just to see if it rattles the pitcher and it lights a spark in my team. Imagine if you throw a pitcher who's completely clean off of his game because you have the umpire out there throwing off his rhythm, delaying the game just to check his ear, his nose, his hat, whatever, just to kind of get in his head. If that would have been found out that he wasn't cheating, right? And then the Mets rally and score 5 that inning and end up winning that game,
Right.
you guys would be praising Buck
Probably,
Showalter for his
yeah.
gamesmanship and going out there and messing
Yeah,
with the pitcher.
rattling him.
Yeah.
But, Chris, to address what it is you were saying before about lacrosse, I did it in a very close game. I did a stick check, and parents were yelling at me. It's a terrible look, right? You're not supposed to do it. It's an unwritten rule. I did it. I was convinced. This girl was lighting us up.
Well,
Close
how do you
game,
how,
though.
how do you cheat in lacrosse
What
for
would
all
she
of
have
us who
done?
don't
So
know?
the pocket is too deep. The stick's not long enough. The width of the stick is, the
I've
head
got
of
you
the
with
stick.
like a tape measure walking out there.
Well,
Like, come here.
the referees do that, but I was right. So I sent a referee to check the stick, and I was right, and she got a 3-minute penalty. Now, if I were wrong, I mean, the parents would have
So
blasted
you're saying
me.
Buck was wrong? Did you see this guy's ear?
I'm saying you have to be right
You
when you
can't
do
just
it.
double your spin rate.
Okay, I want to, again, I just like to keep you guys on topic because you got 2 guys saying a 100-win team was eliminated. 2 credible people because the pitcher was cheating. We have talked a lot about...
Also, because their own pitcher was dreadful.
I understand, Stugotz, but
Sorry.
you have a
I'm
cheating
emotional.
accusation in the middle of this from credible sources in a sport where cheating has been resplendent and varied, and it doesn't seem like anybody cares.
Yeah. I mean, I was upset at Scherzer for not cheating in game 1.
Exactly. He should have cheated in game 1. It never should have gotten to game 3.
Fight fire with fire, Dan.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Your ear has to glow. If his ear is glowing, your ear needs to glow. That's what you do.
That's
I
right.
mean, yeah.
that sport, and it was Trevor Bauer who was showing us when he was winning the Cy Young how it is that guys can manipulate with substances and other things, tell the hitters what's coming, and they can't hit it because Stugotz, the way baseballs are moving now out of the arms of pitchers, make it so that you're watching games. I know yesterday's not the best example because you got 7-6 and 8-7 high-scoring games.
Yeah.
But there are some times that I'm watching professional hitters who are very good, and they're not coming anywhere near hitting the baseball because of how it is that it's being thrown. And this sport has had a number of different cheating issues, and here is one right now that it would seem nobody cares about. Like, and Brian Kenny's getting yelled at. And I don't know, why did Brandon McCarthy end up deleting the tweet that he had on this subject? Because it is unusual for people with credibility, people in baseball circles, and these two people are people in baseball circles who understand what they're talking about when they talk about spin rate, and some of the things that you're watching can't be explained by the adrenaline of the playoffs, Stugotz.
Right, yeah. I don't know why he deleted that tweet. I know Jason Stark was also someone else who tweeted something out about his spin rate, saying it was, I don't know what this means, by the way. It was up by at least 100 RPM. I have no idea what that means, but it seems like a lot.
He was throwing a
lot of RPMs.
He was the ball was moving more and harder than it usually does and Joe Musgrove is hard enough to hit under all circumstances. I guess
but 100 RPM, I mean, what is it, like revolutions per minute? It takes like half a second to get there. So what did it move? Like an extra quarter of an inch?
Makes a difference
in a revolution?
in that sport.
Yeah.
You, as somebody who've been publicly, you kill the Astros all the time for cheating. This kind of cheating is okay. Everyone's okay with this. We can't prove it. Tell me when we've proven it. And if it gets proven, we don't care about it then either. Guys are going to cheat. We understand they cheat. We love yelling at them when they're cheaters, except when it's just McCarthy and Kenny calling them cheaters. Then we ignore it.
Remember when Kenny Rogers just blatantly was like, F this, I'm going to openly cheat with the darkest pine tar in the history of the world on him in the playoffs? That was a crazy time. I mean, this guy's ear was glowing, so I guess it's not that much weirder.
Let's bring in a guest here real quick because we are raising money for hurricane relief, and worldofsuey.com/Ian-relief is one of the places that you can go. And Brian Marokska is joining us now to tell us about, I guess, what Operation Barbecue does, because it's not just a pulled pork sandwich, although that sounds delicious. Thank you for joining us, Brian. We appreciate it. Can you tell us, just so that people understand what it is that we're dealing with on the west coast of Florida and how much help is required and what you guys are doing to make sure that that help is distributed? I don't know what you're seeing there. I'd like you to tell the audience what it is that you're seeing on the ground there.
Hey, guys. First off, thank you for having us on your guys' show. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd say it's about 14 days ago when we started our way down to South Florida here. I'm actually born and raised in Florida here, so I've been through several hurricanes, but this one especially destroyed a lot of people's homes and a lot of lives. So coming down here, trees were snapped, power lines down, water in the middle of the roadways. I personally drove through 6 inches of water trying to get to where we were going, which I've never done that going to a disaster before. It was pretty heart-wrenching as I kind of came down here. But once we got our site going, we started producing about 50,000 meals a day. And like you said, pulled pork, chopped brisket, sliced turkey, chicken. It's the hot meal. These people that lost everything, we want to bring a little bit of hope to them, and that's why we call it the one hot meal that matters, because that hot meal could change somebody's life down here.
Can you explain to people and get them to donate by what it is that you've told us some of what it is that you're seeing, but what people need, the state that you're finding people in as they need help because their lives have been ravaged?
Yeah, we go out into the community and we hand out these meals, and you see just a slab where their home was. This one lady, she was looking for her husband that was had passed and was in an urn, and that was her life. She was looking everywhere frantically. She hadn't eaten in 3 days, and bringing her that meal gave her a little bit of relief for a second. Brought her back to barbecuing with the family in the backyard. There's so many people in that mindset down here. It's horrible. Today we're actually able to go to Pine Island, which I'm sure everybody's seen the pictures. Pine Island is pretty much just destroyed. People have no water, no food, no transportation. So it's going to be a hard day for our folks that went down there, bringing that relief to people that may have not eaten in a few days now. So every little bit that helps, if you're in Florida, I'd love you guys to come to obr.org, sign up to be a volunteer, because to get this much food out and take it out in the community takes hundreds of volunteers. And if you can't make it down here, if you can go to our website and help us financially, every little bit helps.
How many volunteers are out there, and what is the nature of the people who are called out there simply to help during a desperate time?
We have about 100 volunteers a day on our site, and the volunteers are amazing. We start processing at 5 and 6 a.m. Because we got to get our trucks on the road by 10 to get to these places. When a disaster strikes, traffic's really bad. You don't have traffic lights. It just backs up. It takes forever to get out. So our volunteers are amazing. Always upbeat. Always want to help people. And the biggest thing is, a lot of these volunteers, they've been in this situation before, so they want to give back, which is really cool.
When you're talking, Brian, about somebody looking for their husband in an urn, or somebody who has not eaten in 3 days, how much interaction are you having with human beings who have been just fundamentally displaced, that they're wandering around and they don't have a way to get food for 3 days?
So we send out volunteers in our trucks, and we go out in the community and feed, and we run across that a lot. It's everywhere, especially down here, and it really tugs at your heart. You get emotional. It definitely makes you take a step back and think about your own life, and what could happen. Our lives are so fragile.
What else do we need to know, Brian, before you leave here? I will remind the audience, worldofsuey.com/Ian-relief is where you go. If 100% of the T-shirt sales, all of this at LebatardAF.shop, are going to hurricane relief and Operation Barbecue. But what else do people need to know about how they can help you and how they can help us, as Meadowlark Media will match donations up to $20,000?
That's just awesome. Please look for Operation Barbecue Relief on our social media channels to keep up with what we're doing here. We're going to be here as long as the state of Florida needs us. The communities need us. If there's people that need meals, we want to make sure they get fed and help them get back to their lives. Everything is the community has to heal, and that's what we're trying to help the community do here. Once the community heals, we'll start pulling back and letting these local restaurants, start getting back up, because we don't want to take away from the community either. So in due time, we'll move on, and this community will heal, and we hope that we have left our mark here, and just appreciate all the support from afar. we can't do it without people like you guys helping us raise the funds to do this.
Brian, you're doing great work. I am wondering, how did you get involved with Barbecue Relief?
And you owe $20 for clearing your voice into the.
I turned the mic
microphone.
off.
Not you, him.
Oh, okay.
You think
I did it at the same time.
You think
Yeah.
I'm accusing you?
Well, I mean, I did it right in front of you, but I turned the mic
no,
off.
he has done it 3 or 4 times. He has cleared his throat, and he owes $20.
That 20 should go to charity. Brian, I will put up the $20 for you. Okay,
don't believe him. He's not giving anything
if I have
here.
money on
He
me.
does not want to give anything at all. But answer his question, Brian. How did you get involved with this? You don't have money. You owe $21.
I have my Mega Millions tickets. I didn't check the numbers. What happened? Oh, I have $20 here for you, Brian. Got it. Brian, you see that?
That's
20.
awesome.
20.
So,
That's not
so
helpful.
Just putting it on a
You're putting it on the counter. That doesn't help him.
Well, Dan, you take it and you bring
okay,
it to
I'll drive it up there.
worldofsuey.com.
Okay, I'll put
whatever,
I'll
and-
put gas in the car and drive up there.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't use the
That's
20
awesome.
for the gas.
So a lot of our volunteers here were actually competition teams. So we Stan Hayes and Will Cleaver, who's the co-founders, when Joplin tornado hit 2011, they decided that they needed to go feed people. And before they knew it, they served over 140,000 meals, and they were gone for weeks. They didn't expect to be gone for more than 3 days. After that, they saw that there was a need, and the whole competition community came together. I was one of those competition teams, and I love giving back. I love helping people, and this gives me the chance to do it all.
And it's good food, right? Like, I mean, it's not, you're not giving people boxed lunches. Like, this is, people are eating well because you guys are making some
He's an award-winning barbecuer. 100 awards, I see.
Over 100.
Over 100 awards? How good is your barbecue?
Hey, and it's not just me. If you see our volunteers, I'm sure put together we have hundreds of thousands of awards, and nobody. It's not about the eye. It's about the team here. So
Compilers.
we all work together to get it done.
Brian, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate your effort, and we appreciate partnering with you here to see if we can help some people on the west coast of Florida. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
All right, yummy 20 when I see you, bro.
How did you manage that? What did you
do
just
you
do?
mean?
Did you just steal from charity on the air? Is that what just happened?
I gave to Brian.
Once you've won like 600 awards, do you think they lose a little something?
Yeah.
Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Once you've won 600 awards, does a single award lose something?
I mean, credit to them for not getting complacent, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Did you say that on air or in my ear when you called him a compiler?
That was on air, yeah. I wouldn't say that behind his back.
That guy looks like barbecue too.
Oh boy, well he's gone now. That's not.
Put it on the poll. Does Brian
That's
look
a
like
compliment.
barbecue?
People that win hundreds of awards doing barbecue want to look like barbecue.
Put it on the poll as well. Is it a compliment to say that someone looks like barbecue?
Hell yeah.
Thank you to everyone who's donated so far. We're at over $5,000 raised at worldofsuey.com/Ian-relief. We are helping that gentleman's charitable endeavors and helping get people fed, and those are some heartbreaking stories that he told. So scan the QR code on your YouTube screen or worldofsuey.com/Ian-relief.
And again, Dan and I are matching up to $20,000. So we appreciate all your donations. Thank you.
You just tried to steal $20 from that guy. You have given nothing.
Matching.
To
Just
you have not matched anything. What are you matching? You're not
Meadowlark Media. We're all
haven't-
part of
you
it, aren't
haven't-
we? I mean, is it just you? I
You
mean, am
haven't
I involved?
offered- you haven't offered to match anything.
Well, he's
though.
given
You-
20 so far,
I mean,
Dan.
I'm the
You're
only one
asking
who's made a
people to get to
donation.
10. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, where's your cash?
Sweat equity. Mm-hmm.
Sweaty.
Someone writes in, for some reason, I always imagined everyone in the studio singing along, bopping around to the music, making hand motions in the air, etc. during the stat of the day music. No matter how many thousands of times they've heard it, I never imagined they would all just sit there blank-faced. Play the stat of the day music.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
From Bet the Pigskin, Tom Brady, using just his stats in his 40s, would be the Bears' all-time passing leader. Jay Cutler has...
Better than Sid Luckman?
Jay Cutler had 23,400 yards and 154 touchdowns. Brady has 24,000 yards and 174 touchdowns. So in his 40s, he's thrown 20 more touchdown passes than the all-time passing leader for the Chicago Bears.
He has to be getting close to being the Bucs' all-time passing leader, right? He has to be. I mean, who else was there?
Brad Johnson would like a word.
Really?
Is it Brad Johnson? Is it Doug Williams? I don't know. Who would be the all-time passing leader for the Tampa Bay Bucks? Would it be Vinny Testaverde?
Jameis Winston.
Oh, it might be Jameis Winston.
No, it is Jameis Winston.
Oh, so Tom has to be close. I mean,
He's 8,000 yards off Jameis.
oh, he'll get there next year.
Really?
Yeah, Jameis Winston, 19,737 yards. Second is Vinny Testaverde.
Did you think, Stugotz, when Brady said the other day, when he was asked about the state of football, and it said, all I see is bad football. When he was asked about all the 2-2 teams, he's like, all I'm seeing is poorly played football all over the place. Is that what you guys are seeing? Or, of course, is that poorly played football because Tom Brady must be a special kind of aficionado about football, that it must be hard to reach his standard of what is exceptionally played football.
Impossible standards.
This isn't exactly Brock Osweiler we're watching out there right now. It doesn't seem to me like bad football, although there are a couple of bad divisions, but Tom Brady is saying, no, everyone's 2-2 because I see a lot of shit football.
Is this what it's going to be like when he's on Fox? Because if so, he's going to be a great analyst.
No doubt.
He's going to be ripping everyone because not anything reaches his standard. To me, the one thing that would suggest that there is bad football being played is just the utter lack of preseason. But I figured that sort of effect would have ended by week 3, and by now we'd be seeing some good football. I haven't had any shortage of entertainment watching the Red Zone, but maybe the Red Zone does color our view of what we're watching because we're only seeing the good bits from every game.
I'm with you. It's been great. Like, the action's been great.
You can't watch the Carolina Panthers and think that's good football.
If you have money on it, well, no, you can't think it's good, but you can be excited by it if you have money on the game. That's what gambling does for bad games like that. But there's only one undefeated team through 5 weeks, which I don't think is very common, right? It's just the Eagles, and I don't know how seriously people are taking the Eagles. And then you have a bunch of teams that are 3-2, 2-3. Like,
but
just about every team.
Isn't that Brady's point, though? Isn't that Brady's point? Is that normally there would be a strata of 5 to 6 really good teams that are head and shoulders above everyone else?
There are. We know Buffalo and the Chiefs and the Eagles. If they don't get hurt, we know that those 3 teams are better than everybody.
I think people would say Buffalo, yes. I think people still have questions about the Eagles, like an elite team. Can they be an elite team?
But before the season, everybody was saying the Eagles were going to be good, and Jalen Hurts has done nothing to disprove that. Their offensive line is overwhelming.
They're great.
Their skill guys are good. Their defense is good enough, and they're 5-0. You can quibble with whether you think the only undefeated team in the league is actually good or not, but I do think 3 teams have separated themselves, and the evaluation I would ask you about, Stugotz, is when Baltimore and Cincinnati play a 19-17 game, is Tom Brady ever going to look at that and see good football? Is he ever going to look?
Rookie Tom Brady would see that and say, hey, that's pretty good football.
Okay, but rookie Tom Brady was the 1800s. Right now, I'm talking about, is Tom Brady going to look at 1917 and ever think that's good football?
No.
Well-played football.
Nope.
Where Cincinnati has to score one of its few touchdowns with 2 minutes left, and then you need Tucker to get close at the end.
I think Brady's sitting there like, that's all you got, Burrow? You got 17 points in you? Let's go.
I don't think it's necessarily about the scoring. It's about the way at which teams go about it, right? Because Tom Brady's, they won a Super Bowl 13-3 against the Rams. They like the Patriots.
In the 1800s.
In some respects, the Patriots, I never thought of Tom Brady as like the GOAT until we got to Super Bowl 6 and 7, because I never really thought that they had the best offenses. That I never watched them and went, wow, this is except for that one year that they had Randy Moss. But
The
for
year
the
they
most
didn't
part,
win the Super Bowl.
right? Oddly enough, but like they were never the team that was explosive and great.
Nobody was submitting the Patriots when I asked, when have we ever seen a team like the Chiefs before, when they get down 17-0 and you expect them to come back? Nobody was nominating the Patriots, and I thought it was because they never get down 17-0
Right.
the way the Chiefs do. But I have not considered the Patriots that way. We all know Tom Brady plays great football, but I have not thought of them, except for the Randy Moss year, as being an unstoppable offense ever, except with 2 minutes left in the game if he's down.
Right. So I just think that the Patriots are never that team. So I think in some ways his version of it is the precision with which teams operate. That him and Julian Edelman, him and Rob Gronkowski had an unstoppable method of playing because they knew step for step where each other was going to be. And that might be what he's watching, is maybe these teams aren't as precise. They aren't at the level of understanding defenses or hitting routes on precisely the hash. But
he's wrong, because the Chiefs are the one team that can do that, and during his time, Gronk and him were the only ones who could do that. There weren't second set of people. Like Aaron Rodgers had his connections with his guys, but in the history of the sport, Tom Brady is doing this through the prism of, I always know that Gronk can't be stopped, period, because of the connection he and I have, and Kelsey and Mahomes have a similar connection. It's not a lot different.
I think part of what he's looking at, Woody, though, is 4 of the division leaders are 3-2. Like 3-2 through 5 weeks, 3-2, and that's good enough to be a division leader. And then he's looking at 2 teams who are 4-1, who are led by, Cooper Rush and Daniel Jones. Like the teams aren't great. No one believes in any of those, those NFC East teams. I know it's the best division of football.
But your analysis is based, and I'm not saying you're the only one doing this. I don't believe in the quarterback. I don't care how good the rest of the team is. The Dallas Cowboys are clearly good. The Dallas Cowboys on both sides of the ball.
Yet if they were playing the Bucs today in a playoff game, everyone would take the Bucs, of course, because of the quarterback.
But the quarterback is how we're doing all of this analysis. I will not trust Daniel Jones and Cooper Rush, because Cooper Rush is undefeated, but he's Cooper Rush, and Daniel Jones, I've seen what he is. Is the analysis that simplified, that if I don't trust your quarterback, you don't have a good team?
Well, look at the teams you're talking about that are good. Josh Allen, the Chiefs. I mean, why? Because their quarterbacks are great. Bills, Chiefs, those are the teams that I guess you kind of trust. And the reason you don't trust the Eagles yet, even though they're talented and at 5-0, is you kind of don't trust Jalen Hurts, even though he's been great, maybe the MVP through 5 weeks.
Oh, and Tom Brady, oddly enough, is the one that completely embarrassed him in that playoff game last year, where the Eagles were kind of a bit exposed, but they've come back. I mean, look, Stugotz, there are going to be, this year there have been 78 wins, 78 losses, and two ties that have been distributed amongst all the teams. But I think Tom Brady is much more sophisticated than we are watching the sport. He knows he can watch quality of play in, play out, and go, that's not good. And there are people who have a discerning eye for this stuff. They don't look at records, they don't look at names, they just watch the film and go, this isn't good.
Stugotz, are you pointing at Tony because I should go to him, or are you just doing a private show with Tony?
Tony's objecting to me saying that no one really believes in Jalen Hurts because it was one of Tony's 5 NFL notes from one of these weeks.
Yeah, this was
going through all his notes.
I got to write these down. This was week, I think, 3. Jalen for MVP, number 2 on my observation.
What was number 1 that week?
Duval County.
Duval.
Yeah.
Right.
I stole that one.
That
was
one
a good
quite
week,
didn't,
No.
quite didn't live up.
They're still the best team in the AFC South.
Huh.
Just letting
Not
you guys
exactly
know.
high praise.
Wow,
Yeah,
that
jeez.
is
Okay.
not a
What are we
compliment.
gonna do?
By the way, the last 2 weeks, Brady has thrown for over 700 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions.
And they don't even look that good.
I mean,
And they look constipated. Put it on the poll, please, at LeBatard Show. Is saying some team is the best team in the AFC South like saying someone on a dating app has a great personality? Always happy to see Michelle Beadle. She's doing something new here with Formula One. We've talked with the kid Mero about it. Will Arnett is a part of it. I don't know how you got a part of all this. I don't know what your Formula One love is. You must love working with these two guys. How is this as a broadcast experience, and how have you gotten involved in all of this? And thank you, by the way, for joining us. It's nice to see you.
No, nice to see you guys too, and thanks for having me. And honestly, I had signed on with AMP pretty early on just to, do my own little thing, and it's a very small thing. And they knew that I was one of these new American F1 fans, this big giant crop of us. And knowing that, one of them had asked me, would you be interested? And I didn't know it, but they were working on this deal behind the scenes for a while. When it became official, that's when they're like, would you want to do this? Which obviously, this was before I even knew who else was involved. Yes, absolutely. No brainer. Duh. Then they're like, you get to travel. Great. Even more of a plus. Then it's Will Arnett and the kid Mero. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And it's been two dudes who I genuinely feel like I've known for a really long time, way longer than, a few hours. It's been pleasantly and awesomely surprising.
Will Arnett is that funny, correct? All the time, wherever it is you are, he's that funny. It's
so stupid. I will say this, making him laugh is probably my greatest feat in life. Like, I feel like that is an actual audience that doesn't throw laughs away. And he is, and look, I obviously knew who he was. I'm a huge fan of Arrested Development. I like BoJack. I didn't know he was this kind of famous. Like, everywhere we went in Singapore, people knew who he was. And I wasn't expecting it. And he's such a weirdo about it that he's awesome. And he's like, hi, I'm Will. And he's what you want him to be. I was not disappointed.
Speaking of funny, Dan showed up to the F1 race in Miami in gym shorts.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Michelle?
I failed.
Well, I mean, look, stay true to who you are, because I will say the F1 scene, there are a lot of posers in that scene. A lot of watches, a lot of shoes, a lot of bags. Be you. Just be you. Because the thing is, you could be the richest guy in the room. They don't know. This is just a poser with all their nice stuff on one day. Who cares?
That is very Miami, and I appreciate you exonerating me. I do not deserve it. It's as embarrassed as I've ever been, stylistically or otherwise. I wanted to talk to you about some sports stuff. And Billy, I wanted to see, I understand you're an Astros fan. This is not an allegiance that I knew that you had. And Billy hates,
they suck.
He hates the Astros.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, I used to be a huge baseball fan. I even had that dumb beeper that I think one of the magazines sold for a while. And then I went off and I was like, I'm not into baseball anymore. When I came back, the Astros had gone to the American League and were villains. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I could root for them because I want to root for the underdog. And I know as a nation, we are Mariners fans now, so I've accepted that fate. I just want fresh meat. I want different people. And honestly, like, I know I live in the state of Texas, but I don't care for the city of Houston. So it's hard for me to root for them at this point.
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
sorry.
So yesterday, that game, dramatic walk-off fashion, nothing for you.
Nothing. I think the cheating thing doesn't bother me as much. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I respect for trying. And I like the whole the genius behind it, but I'm not interested. I would rather see new people that aren't supposed to be there. And that goes for all sports. Like, I don't like just, it's always the Yankees or it's always this. That's boring to me. I'd rather see new people.
Whittingham.
And the Mina Kimes of the world. Like, how do you not root for them, to root for their teams?
It was always the Spurs, though. You didn't seem to have a problem with that.
No, that I'll never, ever. That's that'll be my longest relationship other than blood family. And that's not even close. So yeah, I hope they never do anything that would make me have to disown them, but they haven't come close yet, really. So I think we're okay.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, please. Do you root for the Seattle Mariners just because Mina Kimes roots for the Seattle Mariners? The San Antonio Spurs, the happiest moments that you have had in your sports fandom involved the Spurs?
Yes, 100%. I had one moment that's not Spurs related, and it would be the Texas Longhorn USC game when they, Vince Young at the very end. That, because I was there and it was just such a weird moment. Everything else has been Spurs related.
And what is the best of the Spurs moments? What was it? Beating the Miami Heat team with the most perfect basketball any of us have ever seen?
Smile on her face.
She was
my God, she lit up.
Well, because the year before was painful. I got kicked out of brother Jimmy's on the Upper West Side because I started a fight with 2 Miami fans. P.S. They weren't fans. They were just people rooting for Miami. They didn't know anything. So I got kicked out of that. It was a bad ending to a season. And I thrive on revenge themes. And so knowing that the Spurs, this quiet team that no one ever really cares about, just had this fuel for an entire season, just hate and vengeance, and then pulled it off with Manu Ginobili, like the hero. It was textbook. It was a movie.
Do you hate?
And Birdman tried to get me kicked out of the game. And I was like, nah, I'm not going anywhere, bro. Like, this was before I did anything. They had no
What
idea.
happened with Birdman? I don't remember this. What happened?
Oh, yeah. So my dad used to have really good courtside seats, and they were right next to the visiting team bench. And I was talking a lot of smack. I mean, we had crammed 3 of us into 2 seats. That's how insane this game was. And I was yelling and heckling or whatever. And he tried to call his security down and kick me out, but it's home security. Like, they're not kicking me out. And then right then is when the scoreboard just lit up and Manu hit his shot. And there's like a screen grab of me somewhere losing my mind behind Manu Ginobili. Like, I look crazy, and it's one of my favorite moments in all of sports.
Can you explain to us? It's not a piano bar, but can you explain to us what it sounds like when Michelle Beadle is heckling the Miami Heat and Birdman Anderson? Like,
I try not to cuss because, can't be that guy. But it's just a lot of like not making eye contact, but talking right at that person and mentioning how the game is going and mentioning that you're about to lose and mentioning that this is going to be the greatest, defeat and all that and scoreboard and this and that. But for some reason, I never said anything personal. I've done that before, like Sean Bradley once, but I never said anything that would have been like derogatory in that sense. I think they were just mad because of the way it was going. And it makes sense. Like, it obviously wasn't going their way. So I get it.
What'd you say about Bradley?
What happened with Bradley?
Just what a waste of height. And he had a small head and I didn't understand it. And then turns out I was sitting like in front of his wife and I didn't know that. By the way, many years ago, I've matured. This is many, many, many years ago.
Do you hate Kawhi Leonard?
No, not anymore. I've, much like any exes that I may have had, we've all gotten over it. I actually root for him in a weird way. Like, I'd like to see him, because now you're basically pitting him, and he needs to take care of the Lakers. And so that takes care of sort of a team that I don't care for. So now I root for Kawhi, and I don't blame him for how everything, I just didn't like the way it all went down. Breaking up and leaving is not a problem I get it. That's what we all do, but it was the way it all was handled. I just felt like it was ugly. And we're not used to that in these parts. We don't have a ton of drama around the Spurs. So it's not something that we necessarily digest easily.
Again, AMP has announced first major sports broadcast package with Formula One, and it's got a bunch of new programming, live shows. Hers is with Will Arnett and the Kid Mero. I urge you to find it and make sure to listen to it. That's a fun combination of people. What do you make of the Draymond Green, all of it? Your surveillance of everything that's happening with Draymond Green, all of it, not just this moment, but just everything going on with Draymond Green.
He's always been that guy that if he plays for you, you love, and otherwise you just can't stand. It's like Pat Beverly. It's that character. But for me, I think this is the season, the year he has finally begun the burning of all the bridges. Like, I just think your value, it's never going to be as high as it once was to the team. Your mouth has gotten so much louder, and now you have this platform with the podcast and all of these things. And when you punch a dude on your own team the way he did, it was such an ugly moment. The fact that they didn't suspend him at all it leaves a bit of a bad taste. We don't know what the fine. I mean, who knows? I don't love it. I'd love to know what Jordan Poole thinks about it all, like how he genuinely feels about how all of this is handled. But we've seen Draymond get suspended for much dumber things before. And I guess because it was in a game context, perhaps that's why it mattered more to them. I just don't like it. You just sit him a game. I think it shuts all of us up, but they chose not to. And I think this is the year. This is the year where even his own big supporters turn.
What do you do with people and athletes, really, who say stuff like that happens all the time? We just don't see it.
Oh, like Kenny Smith?
Yeah.
Look, I can't. They put us in a situation, right? Like, what am I going to do? Argue with Kenny Smith? I don't know. I'm not in those rooms. I don't see what happens. There's a part of me that says, well, I guess I have to believe him, but I don't, in the sense of this day and age. It is very hard to do a lot of big moment things, punching a teammate the way that went, without one of us hearing about it, without some video getting out, without a tweet, without anything. And so I think there are skirmishes. I don't think there are just these monster forward running sucker punch moments. I don't think that happens as much as he wants us to think it does.
How about the entire Celtics situation? Have at it. Just broad topics.
From the beginning, you mean? I mean,
yes, the history of the Celtics. Yes.
Oh, what a history. God. So I thought about this for a while, right? Because there's this part of me that's like, yeah, that's sloppy and messy, and you don't poop where you eat and all that good stuff. But then also, I'm not naive. This goes on all the time. To be suspended for an entire season, that's a big deal. And I don't know what happens after this. Obviously Udoka's a young, promising coach with a bright future in this league, but it got into that weird gray territory of it was an employee. It's also a personal matter. It's ugly. It doesn't look great. And I find myself just like, I don't know what you do. If you leave him on the bench, we're going to mock him forever. But we're probably going to do that anyways when he comes back. So I don't know. Is this not between his wife and the mistress? Maybe. I don't know. And I genuinely find myself at a loss of an opinion on this one. Do you guys have an opinion?
Not allowed. You got to have a ton of opinions.
I know.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed to have no opinions, even though the information has some holes in it that you're basing your opinion on. And we don't know. The penalty seems so stiff that it would appear that there's a lot we don't know.
Has to be, right? Like there has to be more to this story than he had an affair. It was an employee. It was consensual. Like that's part of the story too that they're telling us, right? So I don't know where a year-long suspension got deserved. And I would rather know all the information because it just feels like a personal issue with some sloppy
fair and reasonable and totally unacceptable. That's not the way to take in 2022.
Guys, I know.
Failure. You have failed at broadcasting.
Michelle, we should talk some Formula One since you're here to talk about your work with us. I feel like these.
Where's Jess? By the way, that's the Formula
She's headed
One
up to Notre Dame. She's headed up for
Golick and Smetty.
She is doing a live show. We need to get that information to people in the next couple of days. She's doing a live show from Notre Dame with Golick, but
now,
some Irish pub or something, right? Like
something like that.
Yeah. O'Sullivan's, I think. O'Connor's,
O'Reilly's, O'Rourke,
something.
Yeah, something. But these last two races have been very strange. So I didn't watch the Japan one. I did watch the Singapore one, and it's bizarre that this organization, the FIA, has basically not been able to determine the winner of the last two races in a timely manner, so much so that the now world champion of Formula One didn't know that he was the world champion until he asked someone, hey, am I the champion? And they're like, yeah. He's like, really? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Like this can't happen. This sports spectacle needs to be better than this.
Isn't that crazy? It's like, we make fun of the NFL and different leagues for the way things are handled. And by the way, rightfully so. This is by no means exonerating them. But my goodness, there are so many more eyes on the sport of Formula One now more than ever in its history. And it's the second year in a row, really, that it's been really sloppily handled. But this particular race, like no joke, it's 4:00 in the morning. I'm on with Will Arnett and Mika Hakkinen. I'm past delirious. I'm now back into like, ooh, it's Sunday. Let's start a brand new day. And this all goes down. Everybody's lined up. And then all of a sudden the announcer or the interviewer is like, oh, and by the way, you're the world champion. And that is so anticlimactic. And it's one of those moments, like calling a charge that determines a game in postseason. Like, no, let it play out. We know he's going to be the world champion. It was probably going to happen in Austin anyways. I think he deserves it after having the season that he's had to have this genuine celebratory moment, not this quiet sort of, oops, you won, the race is over. Everybody's already left the paddocks. Like, I just think it was a moment where maybe, sure, did Leclerc do what he did? I guess. Should it have been called? No. And I hope that these are learning moments, but I'm learning very quickly that people who've been following F1 for as long as they have the same amount of issues and problems with their governing bodies as the rest of us do with ours. So it's just, it's another one. Add it to the list of sports that we're going to be like, what are you doing? Hopefully they fix it.
Stugotz, the AP is reporting criminal charges on Devonte Adams, misdemeanor assault.
Wow.
Misdemeanor assault for pushing a photographer on the field. It is just a misdemeanor, but we don't often see criminal charges involved with one of those incidents before you've seen a league suspension or any consequences inside.
We don't often. Do we ever?
Do we ever? I know.
Sometimes in hockey. Sometimes in hockey, the fights are
well,
so
they
bad.
deserve it, though. I mean,
that when you hit somebody with a stick, you can be charged with assault. But what do you make? What's the group make of Devonte Adams getting legitimate criminal charges, according to the Associated Press?
Well, like similar to the Draymond thing, it's almost like when this sport reaches civilians, right? And you see that sometimes, like during actual play, when on college football Saturdays, some dude's just standing on the sideline and just absolutely gets lit up because just the movement of the play is so quick that someone can't move out of the way, and it's so strong that it hurts. But yeah, this is when, I mean, Devonte Adams in his workplace deals with things by shoving people out of the way. And then it comes into civilian life, and then it becomes misdemeanor. Like the whole sport is misdemeanor assault.
It's the Neil Brennan joke of a football player footballs outside of the confines, the accepted confines of football.
It's so well said, Woody. There were 100 things done on the field worse than what Devonte Adams did after the game.
There was misdemeanor assault all over the field.
All over the field. What a mess. I mean, this could have been handled. Like, you kind of wish that the photographer would have, hey, come forward. Maybe we just. Devonte Adams, by all accounts, isn't a bad dude. And so this just seems like one of those moments like, oh, man, that got sloppy real quick. But he apologized, and he hoped that he saw the tweet. I guess he didn't see the tweet, and that's on him. That's on the photographer. Criminal charges.
It sounds to me like you're victim blaming. It sounds like
I am. I always do. Yeah, always. It's always the fault. Like,
the photographer did nothing but get
why
in
were
the
you
way.
there? Why are you even? No, just kidding.
Why were you there? Why don't you come forward? Why don't you accept the apology? Why don't you
No,
check the internet?
I wish they could have done something like together and just been like, this asshole did this, and then he's like, okay, whatever, apologize. It's just it went fast. I will say that from the time it happened to now, that's a quick turnaround, quicker than I've seen in quite some time, if ever.
Spiritually, it seems, and symbolically, the last time you were on with us, the background was real live heavenly deer, and it was one of the most tranquil places I've ever seen on this planet, and what I imagine the beyond looks like. Today, it appears like $30,000 in shoes are behind you.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a hobby that I once had. I've changed, back in the day when we were rolling in it. So I just spent all my money on shoes. And now I've turned it into an entire room in my house that I don't know what to do with because no one wears heels anywhere anymore.
How many pairs of shoes do you have? Like
total in the house?
Yes.
Probably like 1,200.
Jesus.
Like, it's guys, I never had kids. These are kids.
I mean, how many feet do you have?
Children. I know, that's the worst. And I wear flip-flops all day. So it's a pointless room that's a waste. That it's a museum now at this point.
Without putting you in a bad spot, what are the things that you've noticed professionally outside of ESPN that feel a little bit better than the things at ESPN?
Well, it's just for clarification. When you say 1,200 shoes, does that mean 1,200 pairs or 1,200 total? Like you're counting
no,
each
pairs. Pairs, you weirdos. Who counts them as individual
We're
shoes?
the weirdos.
I have one shoe and then pairs. I know it's not, my dad's not proud. It's weird because there are the pluses and the minuses. I obviously individually I'm just a happier person. And that just comes from not having any sort of daily kind of office politics. I'm not surrounded by it. I don't go into an office. I don't hear drama from anyone. Like the people that I work with on a daily basis now, I genuinely want to be working with and I like working with. And I don't feel like there's any sort of backstabbing or conniving going on. So for me, that's been the biggest takeaway. I feel like my skin's cleared up. I sleep better, just the whole nine. So it's nice. I miss sometimes going into a workplace and messing with people. Sure. That part I think is a little bit missed, but overall just a bigger freedom and less crap. I would say. Was there a resentment of your success? Like what was happening? Like office politics means what? What were you running up against? Because you were having nothing but what looked like from the outside as success. Oh no, I was having a blast, and you attach money, and then when your salary gets out, I mean, you know how this goes. Like once the salary goes out, it changes your entire narrative. Now all of a sudden, she sucks, she's not, which is fine. Nobody's worth a lot of the money that people are getting paid, but it is what it is. And then you have the people that actually want whatever job it is you're doing. So there's that kind of backstabbing, and then there's the target that stupid public knowledge of salary gives you. And so, yeah, I think it was always kind of there. It wasn't awful. I mean, there were only a few people that were responsible for that kind of garbage. Mostly I was surrounded by great humans. It's just sometimes the negative is what gets heard over everything else, which I've tried to sort of not do anymore, but it's human nature.
Again, AMP has announced the first major sports broadcast package with Formula One, the Kid Mero, Will Arnett, Michelle Beadle. What else do we need to know about it? What else do people need to understand about what you guys are doing? It's not just Sundays, right? It's not, or is it just Sundays?
Well, it's Sundays, it's race days, and then they release the podcast, which is the post show. But it is basically you turn on your TV and you see the video and you mute it, and then you put us on. So it's Kid Mero, myself, Katie Osborne. We alternate and we talk, and we're not going to make you smarter. I don't want to mislead anybody down that path. Like, it is just idiots that have discovered a sport that we truly have grown to love in a very short period of time, and we are just watching it with you. And then the post is Will Arnett, who's, again, a newer fan of F1, and two-time world champion Mika Hakkinen, which I have to say it that way because it sounds better. It just sounds perfect, actually. And we just shoot the bull with them, and Mika responds to a lot of questions. Like, I've asked Mika Hakkinen some really simple questions, and he answers them so gracefully. And it's what better way to learn about the sport than one of the best of all time. So yeah, it's just a fun time, and it's just an alternative to sort of what you're hearing on the broadcast, just some voices that you may or may not want to hang out with.
Jessica Smetana is at O'Rourke's on Friday with Golic doing a live show. If you're in the area, you should go and say hello. You look as excited as behind the Spurs bench yelling at Sean Bradley or Chris Anderson, or at a wrestling match, because I know you love professional wrestling. What do you love about professional wrestling?
It's the storytelling. It really is. Like, the moves are fine. They're athletes. I'm not going to argue any of that. They're gymnasts, a lot of them, but it's the storylines. And when somebody's good on a microphone, it sort of all falls into that same vibe. It's like smack talking and arrogance and cockiness and stories. And, like, I think that's why I like sports. I'm not X's and O's by any stretch. I like drama and, genuine organic drama, not crap that's been contrived. And I know what you're going to say, wrestling, fine. But some people are better at delivering the wrestling storylines than others. And when you get a good one, you can't lose them. You can't.
Good seeing you, Michelle. Always nice catching up with you. Thank you for making the time.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having me.
What's the least amount of money you would take for all the shoes?
Man, I have to think about it. There's a lot in here. It's six figures. It's definitely six figures.
What?
It's easily. It's easily.
Thank you, Michelle.
I'm telling you, children.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of shoes.
It's not wise. This wasn't a good investment. I'm very aware.
Put it on the poll, please, at LeBatard Show. Has anyone made a less wise investment than 1,200 shoes? Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it. A reminder to the audience that we are doing hurricane relief all day today. I don't know if we've gotten to $20,000 yet, but Meadowlark Media will match up to $20,000, and 100% of t-shirt sales at lebatardaf.shop will go toward relief efforts. worldofsuey.com/Ian-relief. We're trying to help the west coast of Florida. You cannot imagine how bad it is over there. You cannot imagine how some meals will bring some relief to people who need it. Thank you again, Michelle. Much love. Mad Dog is screaming and Stephen A is screaming. I assume at some point we're going to go to Billy in the kitchen to get an update on first take related matters. But before we do that, Michael Lowry is joining us. He's a hurricane specialist, storm surge expert, Local 10 WPLG. We are spending the day here trying to raise money for relief, Southwest Florida. And I don't think people understand, even with the videos, just how bad all of this was and is presently. So, Michael, thank you for joining us. Can you explain to the people, because you're a storm surge expert, what has just happened here and what people in this region are facing over the next weeks, months, and years?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me, Dan. You'd be hard pressed to find a hurricane as bad as this one was for South Florida. You know, I was thinking back and talking to some colleagues of mine. When was the last time we had a hurricane that brought this much storm surge to a populated part of the coastline? You probably got to go back to Ike in 2008 for Texas. But I mean, the amount of water that this just unleashed in Southeast Florida is about as bad as it gets. And, some of the sort of provisional findings from damage assessments show the storm surge got as high as 15 feet, which, you know, you don't really see water levels that high anywhere on the coast. I mean, with the exception of something like a Katrina, right? But this is going to take years, if not decades, to rebuild these areas.
Can you explain to us what that kind of storm surge would have done to Tampa? And the reason I asked that question is I believe that the horror of this is lost in some places because it happened in an area of the country that perhaps the rest of the country doesn't necessarily associate with.
Yeah, the problem with, I mean, anywhere in Southwest Florida, but especially when you get into Tampa, the number of people that live right at the water's edge is the problem there. You know, Tampa was under threat for this hurricane. I mean, make no mistake about it. You know, at one point, you know, this certainly had the possibility of heading up that way. And, you know, at some point there will be a hurricane that's going to hit Tampa. That's going to be a big hurricane. That's going to bring a tremendous storm surge. You know, it's just a matter of time. But we've seen population just skyrocket in this part of Florida the last 40, 50 years. So, you know, the more stuff you put at the coast, it's just hurricane bait. You know, it's just at some point there's going to be a hurricane that comes along and eats it all up. And, you know, that's what we saw for Fort Myers, for, you know, Bermuda Beach, some of the barrier islands, of course. But I mean, you know, it's only a matter of time until it's Tampa's turn, unfortunately. And we don't know, you know, you don't know when that's going to be. It could be next year, you know, it could be 20 years.
Florida was never meant to be populated this way because of this, correct? Because the ocean can come and take back its land.
Yeah. And, you know, Dan, I mean, y'all probably, I know y'all talk about climate change. You can see the fingerprints of climate change in all of these storms, right? I mean, it's not only that the storms themselves are changing because of global warming. You know, we're seeing storms rapidly strengthen more frequently. We see bigger rainfall, especially in the core of hurricanes. We see, you know, more of those top end category 4 and 5 hurricanes. But then you have the sea levels are rising. And sea levels are rising primarily because the oceans are warming, because of global warming. You know, so you're raising the ocean so that, you know, to use a basketball analogy, it's like taking a 10-foot goal and lowering it to 7 feet, and then we're surprised that everybody's dunking. You know, there's a reason why we're seeing bigger impacts at the coast, because the sea levels are rising and the storms are getting stronger.
Can you speak confidently or expertly on what the people of that area, of those areas affected, are dealing with right now?
Well, I think, you know, I've personally been through more, you know, hurricanes than I can count, knowing family members and close friends who have been impacted. I know people in the area have been impacted. It's scary. You know, you don't, I think, you know, a lot of things right now is just sort of short term. Like, what does the rest of the hurricane season look like? Are we going to have another one? Because this is a hurricane that hit pretty much squarely at the same place that Charlie hit in 2004, but it was a much bigger hurricane. So it had bigger impacts, and, you know, different areas were impacted. But I mean, for most of those people, it's just kind of getting life back together. You know, I don't know if returning to normalcy is the right word, because, you know, this doesn't feel like a real normal after a hurricane. I know you've been down in South Florida a long time, and after Andrew, these places were just unrecognizable. You drive through areas that you've known your whole life, and there's not the landmarks that you typically see, right? I mean, you don't see the trees, the stop signs, the street signs, all the things that make a place familiar to you. So it's pretty jarring, man. It's going to be a long road for these folks, and I feel for them.
Does Cantore have to get the hell inside? Does he need to stop that? With the way these storms are getting worse and worse, does he need to get his ass inside?
I think that'd be good for everybody, but I don't think Cantore is going to do.
We need to stop that though. The weather report from the middle of the street during a Cat 5. We need to stop that.
So a buddy of mine just sent me a clip from a few weeks ago. Y'all were going on and on about how, look, this is Cantore's thing, right? You just let him do his thing. It's a Super Bowl. He's going to do what he's going to do. But I would tell you what, having worked with Cantore and friends with him, no one tells the weather better. No one understands it. And he's his own thing, man. There's no one better.
So you're not telling him to get inside. You are encouraging him. You're encouraging this reckless behavior from Cantore.
I would never stand in a hurricane. I've never stood in a hurricane, not on live television. And no, I wouldn't myself do it, but I'm going to let Cantore do what Cantore does, because
right up until a stop sign gets embedded in his forehead, and then we're all going to be here being horrified the way we were with Tua.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't recommend anybody go out and stand in a hurricane. If you're going to do it, you got to do it. You got to do it responsibly, obviously.
My father has always said, better to live a coward than die a hero. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate it, sir.
All right, guys. Good talking to y'all.
Again, we will tell you one more time, worldofsuey.com/Ian-Relief. All of the T-shirt sales are going to Relief. Operation Barbecue is getting meals to the area, in an area where they need meals. I want to ask the group here if I have been fooled again by the internet, because I believe that video of LeBron James jumping into a pool to sell sneakers and then jumping out of the pool physically, where very few people can do this. Most people are not strong enough to jump out of a pool. Now, obviously, I would think LeBron James might be, but it looked like it might have been enhanced. And I don't know if LeBron James at 40 years old can jump physically out of the deep end of a pool just through the strength of his legs. I've seen some offensive linemen be able to do this, but I could not tell from the video whether it was just a commercial that fooled me, like Michael Vick throwing a football out of a stadium, or whether LeBron James was actually physically capable of doing this.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you believe that Kobe Bryant jumped over that fast car?
I've seen offensive linemen do this. If I were to ask you, a 40-year-old guy, if I were to ask you, can LeBron physically do this? I've seen draft prospects before a football draft, like a 300-pound offensive lineman, in a video that's not doctored, have the strength, the leg strength, Now, obviously, LeBron James's lower body strength has to be strong, 40 years old or not. We've seen him dunk over. We jumped over a Lucas. He dunked over. There was a Lucas. There are generations of Lucases who have played in the NBA. He jumped over one of them to dunk, but it also looked fake to me.
So you saw this video and thought it looked real?
It looked fakey.
Because it is. I mean, I'm not doubting that if he trained to do that, he could possibly do that. I am doubting whether or not the Lakers would allow him to attempt to do that for a commercial. It seems pretty dangerous with a pool side.
You think so?
It looks super fake. It's obviously
Slippery.
fake. It was designed to do this. You know what? I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not talking about it anymore. This isn't
That's
an
it?
effective marketing strategy.
You're boycotting.
I can't believe you got Dan Le Batard to talk about this. It is so lazy.
All right.
How dare you?
We did the thing where he might have been bald, and he turns out he wasn't bald.
He's never bald. He does that all the time. He turns out never to be bald. And yet every summer, we're right there talking about him being bald. Never bald.
Another LeBron James adjacent story from Justin Tinsley, where The Shop, which is a show that went from HBO to YouTube, made an editorial decision that was the right editorial decision, but I was not expecting from the LeBron James Mav Carter group to feel responsible to make responsible editorial decisions. They had Kanye West on. Kanye West would be good for ratings, would be good for views, would be good to use all the things that Kanye West is to just bring attention to wherever it is you are. And when you leave HBO and go to YouTube with your own entity, you have incentives to bring eyes. Mav Carter and the rest of Clutch and LeBron James have distanced themselves and will not air a Kanye West episode because of anti-Semitic things that he said. It wasn't even, I don't know if it was doubling down on what he did with Tucker Carlson or if it was taped beforehand. Either way, Kanye West is not allowed that platform. LeBron James, Mav Carter will not allow Kanye West to appear there.
And from leaked footage of the Tucker Carlson interview, it seems as though Tucker was even trying to protect Kanye from more harmful and hateful statements that they made the editorial decision to cut out. Here's a statement from Spring Hill Company CEO Maverick Carter. Yesterday, we taped an episode of The Shop with Kanye West. Kanye was booked weeks ago after talking to Kanye directly the day before we taped. I believe he was capable of a respectful discussion, and he was ready to address all of his recent comments. Unfortunately, he used The Shop to reiterate more hate speech and extremely dangerous stereotypes. And Van Lathan, who was recently a guest on South Beach Sessions, he came on and he has a statement saying, you know, that crazy episode that Kanye had at TMZ. Well, apparently he said he loved Hitler and the Nazis then, and TMZ made the decision to cut that. I'm not sure what went into that decision. Maybe a deal was brokered for more access or an apology. But Kanye keeps doubling down as people give him off ramps to walk things back and apologize, and he's being protected to a degree. But now these stories, the rhetoric has become so dangerous, the statement so hateful, that the protections that have been put in place to protect him from himself are starting to dissipate.
It's the right decision to make. It's not the easy decision to make when you're not an entity that makes editorial decisions and don't have the responsibilities. They can. It would be very easy for LeBron James and Mav Carter to say, if they wish to, like there would be damages that they would risk with sponsors, with Hollywood and everything else, that we got this freedom and we answer to no one, and we are not responsible for what Kanye West says. They have correctly identified it as hate speech and run it off. But there aren't a lot of folks, I would say, I dare say, that once you've allowed Kanye West into the tent to traffic in whatever it is you get from Kanye West, once you get him to sit down and do all the work, there are not a lot of folks that I know who don't have to be beholden to editorial decision-making who would say, never mind about that. We're going to cancel all of it. We don't want anyone to see this. It's the correct decision, but I would not say that these decisions are easy to make when you're these people who don't necessarily have expertise in this kind of decision-making.
Yeah, it's tricky because I don't want to explain away any of this. Very clearly, Kanye West is a disgusting, hateful person because there is a trend here.
Who seems not well.
Well, I think that's the trickiest part in terms of editorial too, is we've seen this with Kanye occasionally. Not this anti-Semitism to this degree, certainly, but he goes through episodes very clearly where it's a lot of Kanye and it's in doses, right? He has these episodes. You can tell from his social media behavior. We used to think it was promotional Kanye. No, he's very clearly having an episode right now, and people internally are having their discussions as to whether or not they should give someone that is very clearly going through an episode a platform. At the same time, he doesn't necessarily get to escape because he's going through an episode. He doesn't get to escape the consequences of hate speech and anti-Semitism. But Tucker Carlson is even having these editorial discussions.
But airing him.
He's airing him.
But what I'm saying,
off the audience.
But what I'm saying is once you get Kanye West to sit down, whatever you're trafficking in right there, once you've invited Kanye West to sit down, the idea of killing everything he said as an editorial decision, Mav Carter and LeBron James are doing something that Tucker Carlson and TMZ and others are not doing. They're airing the parts they want. They're getting what they want out of the transaction, and whether it's protecting him or just not allowing hate speech, they're editing out the other parts. This decision that LeBron James wasn't there for this taping, but this decision being made by Mav Carter and quotes from Mav Carter saying hate speech will not be tolerated. It's an admirable one and a laudable one, and I don't think a lot of people would go 100% on we've gotten Kanye to sit down. We can get whatever traffic we get from Kanye sitting down, and we're not using any of what he said because of the wrong that he said.
It makes you wonder just exactly how bad this is. I'm sure a lot of voyeurs are interested in seeing some of this footage because it was filmed. It's apparently out there. Some of the other things that were reported to come out of the Tucker Carlson interview, aside from the anti-Semitism, was he was making bizarre claims about a child that was planted inside the home
children
of his children to influence them, and he put names and parents' names out there. He's very clearly going through a bizarre episode, and I'm not saying that to excuse any of the behavior or statements.
I do think that the decision that Spring Hill Entertainment made was actually the obvious one, because I would say, first off, to lend them some credit, they must have recognized that this is a crazy amount of hate speech and you can't platform it. But I'd say a secondary motivation was you guys are using the word editorial. That's a public relations decision, right? At least in part. They're making a public relations decision we cannot have our logo in the bottom right corner that says the shop on this clip of Kanye West, which will presumably be seen by millions of people, and we are in some ways endorsing by putting our logo in the bottom right corner what he's saying.
Forgive me.
You don't want to be that kind of viral with your logo next to someone who's saying that.
The easy decision is to condemn the anti-Semitism and the hate speech and to eliminate the anti-Semitism and the hate speech. The part that I'm saying is not the easy decision, is to kill everything else you had, the reasons that you had to sit down Kanye in the first place, which is you want the rub from Kanye sitting down. Like we don't tend to use our morals that completely. They are separating from Kanye West in anything that he says because of the thing that he said, and everyone should be condemning on the front end the anti-Semitism and giving voice to that. So forgive me if I sounded like I'm saying that it's not the obvious decision to condemn and eliminate the hate speech. I'm saying they just trashed the episode entirely.
And that's a lot of money that they've thrown away. They were quick to highlight that they scheduled this a couple of weeks ago, which was prior to the most recent anti-Semitism scandal that Kanye West finds himself in. They did a pre-interview and felt assured that this would be an avenue for Kanye to walk things back, apologize for his behavior, clarify, and potentially apologize. And Kanye went in there and doubled down, and apparently it went even worse on this, which is, I mean, it's a heartbreaking situation to see what's happening with Kanye West, because as much as he feels alone right now, presently, and some of them are grifters like Tucker Carlson that have their ulterior motives, but he still has enough support within the hip-hop community for people trying to get him out of this. And he is cutting off support systems right now. He is burning bridges. He is publicly posting interactions that he's having with Puffy, where Puffy is trying to level with him as a black man. You're hurting our community with the White Lives Matter stunt that he pulled a couple of weeks ago. And he's just putting everybody on blast right now. And it's a dangerous situation for Kanye and those around him. And there are reports out there about the Kardashians having to hire additional security. He's far too flippant when it comes to the security of his children, I feel, to the point that if you're a parent and you're Kim Kardashian, you obviously have to fear for your safety and your children's.
I hate the fact that him being a representative of the black community, that he's speaking for the black community. He's not. Absolutely not. He is not. Because this type of thing would, a generations-long allyship with Jewish people and black people, that could get cut off easily because a person of that stature is making those comments. And that's just... It's bad. It's really bad.
We're going to try and lighten this up a little bit with Papi's refrain del dia. Look at Papi. Papi feels weary, and he's making faces over here, but he's ready to help us out with the post game and refrain del dia. Again, a reminder here as we close it out on YouTube, worldofsuey.com/Ian-Relief is where you go if you want to buy some t-shirts. 100% of the proceeds today are going to go toward relief. And also, we are matching up to $20,000 at Metal Arc Media with Operation Barbecue. Please help us out. You will get us to that $20,000 before the end of the day. Post-game show next.
The GOAT? He's a kicker. I mean, Tom Brady's bed's still warm. Tom Brady just left. You're the greatest.